see.
I feel like we need like a Bruce Buffer. We're live here.
Something like that? No, that's not it.
No. Yeah, there we go.
No. All right, here we go. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool and my ginger snap cookies.
Oh man,
went downstairs
I
between.
believe you're going to break those out on the show right in front of me.
You know, we're recording these episodes. I went down to the kitchen to get the second beer because we do these episodes back to back.
Right.
And as soon as I walked down the stairs from my office, this smell, this aroma hits me. And my wife is downstairs baking Christmas cookies. And today's cookie is ginger snap.
Fresh out of the oven.
Fresh out of the oven. And it's one of my favorite cookies. So I just couldn't resist. So it's probably going to totally screw up my beer tasting. I'm going to have this really rich ginger with whatever's coming up.
Mixed with whatever we shall find out.
Yeah. So yeah, eating ginger snap cookies on a podcast, munching in people's ear. That's good. That's good podcast radio right there. What's that called?
Nothing wrong with a little chewing there. No, as long as it's
called?
Good.
The ASRM or whatever they do, where they make all the weird sounds for YouTube videos and stuff. We're going down that rabbit hole today, I guess. But no, but seriously. So we were talking with Pete on the last episode from Pete's Wicked Ale. And then afterwards in the green room, we were talking, he just starts throwing out all this stuff. We're like, well, that would have been really cool.
Nice to record. Yeah.
Yeah. And somebody, I don't know who, somebody on the production end forgot to hit record.
You while we're idiot.
So we need to fire that person. But luckily I took notes, so I did capture some of it. We won't do it justice, but we are going to go through some of the things that he works through with his clients when he does score consulting, which is kind of a non-profit part of, I think he said the Better Business Bureau, one of those companies, Small Business Administration. I think that's what it is.
Yep.
So where you can get free consulting from people like Pete, who had who started and sold two craft companies, craft beer and craft chocolate. My kind of guy. I mean,
oh yeah.
Talk about a life well lived. I mean, craft beer and craft chocolate and get a big check for both.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, basically you're set. Somebody buys you out, which is actually the dream. Most people think the dream of an entrepreneur is to own a business for the rest of their life. I think for most entrepreneurs, it's to have a business that they can sell for a lot of money. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what he did. So,
yeah. Well, before we get into that, we're going to drop a couple things that he's told us, off while we stopped recording in the green room, that I think are pretty good. So, like I said, we won't be able to go into the full explanation that he might give, but I did take enough notes to at least warrant a quick episode here. Plus we've got more beer to taste, and I had to taste this beer today, and I wanted to get to it. My hopes are kind of high.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not disappointed, but
well, that's a perfect reason to have another episode.
Yeah.
Is to try another beer.
Yeah. And speaking of trying other beers that you don't normally try, we have this cool little service that you could subscribe to called the Original Craft Beer Club.
Outstanding craft beers from the finest independent microbreweries in the US of A. One of the best ways you can sample these unique beers is by letting the Original Craft Beer Club do all the legwork and bring the best beer discoveries in the country right to you. And how can you do that? Well, you can first go to persuasionbythepint.com/craft beer to learn more. Then you can sign up. You can get, whether it's monthly, bi-monthly, however you want, you can have an assortment of beers delivered right to your door without having to get out.
Yep. I've been doing this for it's been 4 or 5 months now, as we go through this pandemic and Had some great beers come through, some average beers come through. So like, but through the season, and they kind of shift with the seasons, but stuff that you can't get in your area. So if you live in Texas, you're not going to get a lot of Wisconsin or Oregon or wherever beers because they're not nationally, they're not distributed nationally. So it's kind of cool to get those and get the backstories on them and get a little trivia and little write-ups about the beer. So really good stuff. I'm waiting on my December shipment. Haven't gotten it yet. Super excited to get that. But yeah, it's a great service and I'm really enjoying it. You get the subscription I have is 4 different beers, 3 of each. So it's 4 beers, 3 of each. So you get 12 beers, which is about right. We go through 1 or 2 per. We go through 1 per episode here. Gives me a couple extra during the week. So yeah, it's a good service, and I'm enjoying it. I wish they had a few more darker beers, but if you like just the variety and really appreciate the craft beer world, like we talked with Pete on the last episode, then you'll really enjoy the original Craft Beer Club.
Yep. Absolutely. And again, great Christmas gifts. We got Christmas 2 weeks away.
Yep.
Great Christmas gifts to give out to somebody who is a beer aficionado, if they like kind of that trying the beer of the month or trying new selections and like to try something new every now and then. This is a great way to do it. Just give a gift, even a one-time gift. You can send them like a case of it or a 12-pack or something like that.
Yeah, and if they got one of those like craft beer apps where they're trying to rack up all their craft beers, like this is a great way to like put them ahead of their friends because they'll have stuff nobody else has.
Yep.
And we all want stuff, and we all want stuff that our friends don't have. That's the American way.
Absolutely.
That's the American way. All right, so let's get in. So my beer for today is not from the Craft Beer Club because I did run out on my shipment waiting for the next one. So I went down to the local HEB and found me a beer made in Texas by Texans. And it's by Texas. It is brewed and canned by Martin House Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas, which I think I've had recently. The same brew company. So check out this. Oh, let's see if I can get without the glare. So,
oh man, that looks like
looks like a blonde-haired Jesus or something, right?
Wait, now he looks like he's a chef.
Yes,
chef.
You're on the right track. So
let's got in this plate. I'm just trying to
roll this around.
Dessert
beer, Bananas Foster dessert beer with banana, cinnamon, and rum flavor. This could be a train wreck, or it could be absolutely amazing.
Let's see that face again, because I'm thinking, that looks like.
If I hold the can just right, it catches the glare. It really shines.
Sure.
It's
like one of my wrestling heroes from the 80s, like Dusty Rhodes or somebody like that.
Yes, it looks like one of your little, like your Stretch Armstrong doll, maybe that you had, that you pulled all the way across the street with your buddy and it snapped. We all did that.
Absolutely.
Or the Incredible Hulk version of the Stretch Armstrong, whichever one you had. And then that red goo comes out, and you're like,
"Oh yeah,
what is this stuff?"
Oh man,
that was the good old days.
To be a child of the '80s again.
I know, right? Now it's all virtual reality and video games and stuff. And we had our video games, but it wasn't all we had.
Yeah. So we had Pac-Man and Mario and
Space Invaders.
Had
the old Atari Pitfall. Oh, that was Pitfall. Next level, man. Pitfall was like next level.
Anybody that ever loved Indiana Jones loved Pitfall.
It was like it's living vicarious. It was like being Indiana Jones.
That's right.
It was as close to virtual reality as we got.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
So I got actually a similar character. And I've actually had this. So I had this, I think, like when we first started the show, I think I brought this one on, but it's been a while. And actually had my sister-in-law came by, week before last, and she actually brought a 6-pack of this by, and I had it available. And I remembered we haven't really officially reviewed this. We kind of talked about it on some of our previous episodes, but that was before we did our kind of our rating. So this is an Einstock, and it is the Icelandic Toasted Porter. Icelandic Toasted Porter.
I seem to remember. That was not as good as the label.
I know. I think you're right.
I think we said that afterwards. We're like, because that's when I was joining you in the studio there.
That's right. We did. This was an in-studio beer, and we called it the Thor beer, I believe.
Yeah. Oh man, I hope it's better than it was before.
Yeah. So
maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it was a different, but it had those colors for sure. So
we're going to give it justice regardless today, because it escaped our ranking wrath back in the day. So it's gonna get its due today on the show.
Oh wow, this smells like it's a type.
You may have a really bad rating day.
It smells like some type of banana candy, which I guess is in the right direction, right? Because it's dessert beer, Bananas Foster. But I'm thinking like a little square, like chewy taffy. That's what it tastes.
Oh yeah.
Like banana saltwater taffy. That's what it smells like. If it tastes like that, I'll be fine. That's awesome.
When you said banana, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Chewy taffy banana style.
Yeah. So like a banana saltwater taffy. So yeah. Hey, if it tastes like that, I'm good. Like that would be fine with me. So
okay. All right. Well,
let's do it.
Now's the that's the wrong one. There we go. Although we might need to do a little bit of this if it's bad. Yeah. It's amazing. Nothing changes.
Let's see. So we need a womp womp. Do we have a womp womp?
I think we used to have one, and I replaced it with something else. I can give us a laugh.
Yeah, that's close. Yes, this is a letdown. Like the last one was pretty good. The last one had the old Brewster Cogburn, but this one is a little bit of a letdown. I mean, I should have known when you go so over the top with Bananas Foster can. I mean, I knew I was rolling the dice when I came into this, but it's not like bad. It's just to use Pete's words from last. It's not memorable either way. Like it's not super bad and it's not super good. It's just kind of smell a little banana, but it's not like a really memorable taste. So a little disappointing there. I'm going to give this a 2.7.
Wow.
So
that's disappointing. I'm gonna follow you with and I kind of expected this, but I mean this Einstock, and I don't even know what it got. I haven't checked it out on Beer Advocate or any of these other sites like that. But my own opinion, and from our previous tasting, we started out doing this before our ranking system. This beer is just there's not much taste to it at all. You can taste a little bit of I guess maybe a little coffee, but there's no balance in it. There's no sweetness at all. I mean, it's just I don't know, not much taste in it to me at all. So
yeah. I tend to remember that.
It's bitter. It's more you get kind of more of just a bitter taste, if anything. And there's not much to balance it out. So
so don't let the sexy packaging fool you if you come across the Eins, because it is great packaging.
I love the Thor guy or the Viking guy on the front. It's really cool.
And the colors are nice. It's very, very kind of masculine, stands out nicely.
Yeah. But it's just like I can take a couple of sips and there's just nothing, there's nothing. There's just not much flavor. So
disappointing. Well, let's get into some of
I got to give my rate. So I'm going to give it a 2. I'll give it a 2.4. 2.4.
Yeah.
2.4.
All right. So down on the lower end.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, I gave mine 2.7. Not awful, but just not as what I was expecting.
Right.
So, all right. So as I said, we were talking to Pete of Pete's Wicked Ale, and I can't remember the chocolate name, but Pete's Chocolate, we'll call it that. I can't remember exactly what his name, but Coco something. And he gave us some tips afterwards. He dropped a ton of great ideas and thoughts and everything on the show. So if you haven't heard that, go back and listen to the last episode. Oh, look, you've already put it on the whiteboard, huh?
The mini whiteboard.
So treat your product with reverence and everything else with irreverence. Pete Schlossberg.
There you go, Pete.
There you go. It's already up on the wall almost on the wall in the office.
Yeah, this is the mini whiteboard. It hasn't gone on the big whiteboard yet. But it's going to. That's a great takeaway.
It is. It really is. It was treat your product with that reverence, but then everything around it, the branding, the marketing, have fun. That was a big point he made, was have fun. Which kind of leads into what he calls, when he does his consulting with SCORE, he'll take new people through their elevator pitch and he'll ask them 4 questions. And then he has kind of a 5th question. But the 4 top questions he asks is, number 1 is who you are. Like, who are you as a company? Who are you as a brand? Like, what are you here for? And like, it's not just I'm a beer company. It's like, well, what kind of beer? And like really get into who you are. Yeah. Man, I can't see. I knew this was going to happen. Like, I'm afraid I can't read the next question.
You wrote it down so fast. You can't read it.
Yeah. Niche. So the next question was like, what's your niche? Like, what part of the market do you want to really go after and take over? And we talk about niching a lot. Yeah. But it's interesting because he comes from kind of the big retail, distribution. You're on actual shelves, and that was a great tip on the last show where he's like, if you're going that route, take a picture of your product or take an actual, prototype of your product, put it on the shelf in the grocery store or whatever store, take a picture of it, and then ask 10 people you don't know, what do you see when you look at this picture? And if they don't see your product, redesign it.
Right.
Which is getting harder and harder because people are starting to catch on to that. It's like we talked about. That's how we buy our beers these days, is what sticks out, what stands out on the shelf, what has a cool label or anything else. But yeah, you really need to know your niche. Is it something new? Is it unique? Like, why are you going into that niche? And then he said, and I know these things seem obvious, but nobody sits down and actually writes out the answers to these questions. I mean, I ask my clients this. It's easy to just kind of gloss over them and kind of get them about right. But very few people actually work this out and put it in writing. So the next one, the third thing is, who are your competitors? Yeah. Like, a lot of people are like, well, I'm original. I have no competitors. Right. Which is rarely, especially these days, ever true. Even when Pete launched his brand, what was that? What did he say? 84, 86, somewhere in there. One of the things he did later on was he created this really cool graphic to educate people on the beer market. And he put all his competitors on there. So he wasn't the first. There were still Sam Adams. There were still, some of these other brands out there. They weren't super well known. The whole niche was small. Right. But he knew who they were. Sure. And he knew how they compared to his Wicked Ale. And, he was able to identify those competitors. And you have to do that because then the next question is, why are you better? Why are you different? Right. And we've certainly talked about this one a lot.
Story is a big thing. I mean, if you go to, your local gas station or, Quickie Mart or whatever, and you go to the cooler, and if you're looking for a bottle of water, you're going to see like probably 10 different brands.
Yeah, at least.
And so, one of the things that, talking about guerrilla marketing, how to stand out, what catches your eye is, when I always go to the cooler, like if I make a stop, and typically I'll stop and grab a bottle of water or something and a snack, and like I go for the water. Well, your eye naturally gravitates to the, something that's different. So let's take, for instance, a bottle of Voss, VOSS,
It's funny. That's the one I was thinking of. I was like, he's going to say Voss.
Voss. So not only do they have, like, their bottles are different, because they're straight cylinder, even the cap is like, everything is pretty much all the way down from top to bottom is just a straight cylinder, and you just take the cap off. But they've got also glass bottles, which is completely different. It's kind of that cool feel. They've got plastic glass bottles, but it's really unique. So your eye just naturally, just like we talk about with beer, these labels that really catch our eye, the product that you display, if you're different, and if you, present something that's really unique and really cool looking, which their bottles are really cool looking, then, I'm going to pick that up.
Yeah. I mean, Voss has that really high end look, and it's not much more expensive.
No,
it's less than like Fiji water, but yeah, it's just, if you like that kind of a little bit of that touch of modern kind of look, then that's, now if you're like a super country, shabby chic kind of person, you're probably not going to go for that bottle. That's not your style.
Right.
But for the people who like that style, it's just great design. So that's a great point. And that's you talk about a tough market. Like, what makes you different with water, So you got your pH waters, you got your electrolyte waters, you got your spring waters, and then you got your
alkaline,
alkaline now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got all these different,
and all that happens because they're all trying to find their unique thing and create a unique segment within the bottled water industry.
Yeah.
And that industry has just exploded, over the past 10 years. It's just amazing. Like, I'm sure my grandfather and your grandfather is just laughing. I mean, even us, right? I mean, you think going back to the 80s, like, we're drinking out of garden hoses in the front yard. And it's like hot. It's like burning hot when you first in the summer.
Yeah.
Like when you first turn it on, the hose is practically melting.
Oh yeah.
No telling what's coming with the water from that hose.
Yep.
And then, it finally cools off after, 2 or 3 people have taken a drink of it. But we were drinking. That'd be a great product. We should just have like garden hose water, and we'll have it like in a green.
Yeah. We talk about nostalgia all the time, dude. Let's taking people back to the 80s big time.
Yeah. We could have that same green garden hose with a stripe.
Absolutely.
On it. Man, that'd be fun.
I remember we lived out in the country, and I remember sitting out. We actually had a well. Okay. we had about an acre or so of land, and we had our own well. And I remember us sitting out on the well a lot of times, or sitting out there, and like when it got hot, we'd have the well, and then we'd have the big long, like you said, the green hose coming out of that. You'd turn the water on when you got hot, just drinking out of that. And it's got, like you said, it's got its own taste. It's got you're tasting a little bit of that rubber hose. Yeah. Especially when it's warmed up, got that hot sun kind of warming up the rubber. It's like, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. We may have a hit on our hands right there. Call Ryan and tell him I got a new product idea. Garden hose water.
Garden hose water. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's funny because, as crazy as that sounds, like, there's a segment of the population, the segment of the market that would buy it just for the nostalgia of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's a distinct taste in garden hose water. I'm going to tell you.
And there's a certain part of the population that would buy it just to like thumb their nose at people who are like, right,
that are drinking the fancy bottles. Like, there's always a reaction to everything.
You got the contrarian that's going to buy it just to make a point.
So you got the Fiji over here, that's got the unique story of like the Fiji Islands and getting, how they pull it from the
purest water on earth, or whatever they say.
And then you got over here, right, sitting right next to it or right above it on the shelf, you've got well water.
Yeah, well water, garden water,
garden hose water.
Yeah, got a picture of a kid on the label drinking out of a garden hose. Perfect.
I think that would be awesome.
That would be fun. All right, I'm gonna have to make a phone call. Yeah, so those.
Can I show you something real quick before we move on to the next one?
Sure.
So talking about that uniqueness. So Apple sends me this week. So man. you know Apple, we talk about Apple a lot because we're we're not.
They take all our money. That's why we talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, you sent me a link this week of these new the new headphones. What are the
over-ear headphones?
Yeah, the over-the-ear, the AirPod Max.
Yeah.
Man, those things are slick.
Yeah.
But anyway, they send me. So I ordered and I actually signed up. I don't know why, but I decided to sign up for an Apple card. So they can't just send like everybody else. They can't just send you a credit card, right? They have to send you the slick packaging, which if you see that, it's got their logo on the front, like with the cardboard, envelope with the fancy design. I mean, just like every bit of their packaging, and their card is not a plastic card, as you know, it's metal. So they're giving you something that's completely different than everything else in your wallet.
Hold that up closer so I can see the number.
There is no number. See, that's why I can hold it up. You just see the chip.
Nice.
Fancy, right? But I mean, it's like this thing is solid, but everything they do, it's again about being a little bit different than everything else that you see out there.
Yeah, I mean, they were founded on design, and they've stuck to that. Even when there's things we don't like about the way they do things, and we think they should do this, they seem to always come out on top. They're like three steps ahead of the market, of what we think we want. They roll out as like, nope, you don't need a headphone port anymore. We've decided they're like Caesar, right? We have declared the headphone port is irrelevant.
Yes.
Needed.
No.
And you're like, how can you do that? And then they roll out the AirPods. You're like,
I see. Okay.
I've never used headphones with wires again.
That's right.
Not with my phone anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy how they do.
Oh yeah, and we yell at them the whole time that we're
no USB
actually
ports.
clicking the buy button.
Yeah, it's like no USB ports. I remember when they got rid of the CD-ROM drive, and I was like, "What? No CD-ROM, no DVD? How am I supposed to load software?"
That's right.
But they knew everything was going to be downloaded, right? Because they're ahead of the curve. They know where everybody's going,
right?
So it reminds me of that Wayne Gretzky quote, right? Skate to where the puck is going, not where it is.
Exactly.
And they are world
always. Yeah. I mean, you look at their newest MacBook with this M1 chip. I mean, way ahead of the game. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But yet we bitch and whine about the USB going away, the USB ports and this and that going away, but yet we still continue to go back like a dog. What did it say? The dog to the vomit and spend money. So
I mean I had totally written the MacBook Pro off, and then they say, "Oh, we've got this new chip," and then I start reading about it. It's got like 24-hour battery life and like all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm getting a new MacBook Pro next year.
Right.
As soon as the 15-inch comes out,
That's right.
I'll be diving in. So for another $50,000, whatever it costs.
Exactly. I mean, they have your average consumer who used to think in terms of, I'll go to Office Depot and Office Max and just buy me a computer.
Yeah. Get an old HP here.
Yeah. They've totally changed that.
Yeah.
The whole paradigm of buying a computer. So
it's like Starbucks, that tripled the price of coffee. Go to McDonald's and get it for $1.50, or you can go to Starbucks and get it for $5.50.
Right.
Same coffee. McDonald's actually may be better coffee, but you're paying for the experience and the atmosphere, and so much so that McCafe is designed after Starbucks. I mean, that's the whole point of the new McCafe stuff.
Yep.
And it works. A few years back, I wrote a financial newsletter promo about how all these, McDonald's were remodeling their stores in this more cafe style and this more Starbucks style. And some of the research showed that when they did the remodel, it would add 25% revenue after the remodel, which is pretty amazing. I mean, that's a big jump.
Sure.
And it doesn't change anything on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the feeling you get when you walk in the store.
Right.
And somehow that translates to 25% revenue. That means for every dollar you spend, you're spending $1.25. Like that just like, if you really sit and think about it, it doesn't really make sense. But, you know, I'm sure he got more traffic because more people were willing to have business meetings there. That's one of the things they said. You know, it didn't feel like they got rid of the big red plastic booths,
right?
You know, that felt like the kiddie land part, got rid of Ronald McDonald and all that stuff. So you could meet somebody there for a business meeting if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that people love about Starbucks.
Yep.
You can go in and have a meeting there. So that's kind of stuff. So It's just amazing that, you know, those little things. So let me just go through those. Who are you? Mm-hmm. What's your niche? Who are your competitors, and why are you better or different? And that's kind of the basic elevator pitch that Pete goes through with people he mentors in SCORE. And then he asked them this question, which I thought was really good. And that is, what benefits do you bring to the world? And he made a point that says, from the customer's perspective.
Yeah.
So it's not just, well, we're going to provide more jobs or anything like that, right? It's, what benefit do you bring to the world from a customer's perspective? How do you make the world better is what I heard.
Right.
You know, why should I give you my money? How are you going to better the world if I give you my money? And I think a good example of this, you know, one of the best examples over the last 10 years or so is Tom's Shoes.
Yeah.
Where it's like you buy a pair of shoes and we give a pair of shoes. And now Bombas, a lot of people have followed that model, right? Bombas now has, you buy a pair of socks, we give a pair of socks to the homeless shelters.
Absolutely.
All those kind of things. And then there's a lot of other companies that Subaru gives, you know, a portion of sales to different things. And a lot more people are getting into these types of charitable ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, you know, the Tom Shoes, I remember him talking about, may have been on Shark Tank one time when he was one of the sharks, but he said, you know, people thought he was crazy when he came, like when he had that idea of like giving a pair of shoes away.
Yeah.
Like investors would be like, no, that's not a good business strategy, you know?
Yeah. You're going to double your cost of goods.
Right.
That's all they saw, right?
Sure.
If you ask the MBA, they're going to be like, well, that doubles the cost of goods. You can't do that and survive.
Yeah.
And they don't understand the goodwill that creates when you're willing to do good.
Yeah.
Goodwill is one of those things that, you know, especially in the direct response space that we're kind of more in, it's hard to put a number on goodwill, but if you look at a lot of the big companies, that's a line item in their actual like profit and loss statements. They can actually put a number on goodwill because it's worth so much.
Right.
And I kind of got that, but then as I've been working with Rudy over here at the agency, and he's been part of taking over some of these big iconic brands that the brick and mortar part went out, but then they brought them back to an online presence. So Pier 1, Radio Shack, some of these brands, I mean, they fire these websites up and they just start doing sales immediately because there's so much value just in the name and the goodwill that they've built up over the years. You know, whether they've done anything, you know, really good, help the world or not. You know, imagine if they had.
Sure.
And then that would be even more powerful. But it just goes to show that if you get a good reputation, it's worth a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And it could outlast even, you know, even though they went out of business because not enough people were shopping there to support the retail structure physically, people still like the brand. So, and that just gives you a deeper tie. So, you know, if you feel better about buying Tom's Shoes or Bombas or Subaru because they're donating to these things, you're going to be more loyal and you're going to buy more over your lifetime.
Oh, absolutely.
So another thing he said was to create a company sell sheet, create a company sell sheet.
Yeah, I love that.
So I'll let you go into that a little bit. Go ahead.
No, you go. I mean, I just like the idea of it. But
yeah. So I think there's a couple different types of sell sheets, and I wasn't sure. We'll have to ask him maybe when you have him on one of your other shows, but you can report back. So there's like two types of sell sheets, really. There's like a product sell sheet that you would use for retail and that type of distribution. And there's also, when you get to that point, there's also like actual selling your company sell sheet. Like when you're ready to put your company on the market. I'm pretty sure he was talking about individual products.
Yeah, I think so.
When you take your, because he was big in, he as an alcohol brand that's very reliant on wholesalers that then, pitch your product for shelf space to the liquor stores, the grocery stores, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's pretty, as I think about that, it's pretty amazing what he did in the 80s and 90s, because that was like not all stores, even especially grocery stores, didn't even sell alcohol back then.
Right.
A lot of them. Now, now alcohol's everywhere, right? I mean, it's like grocery stores everywhere. So the fact that he had that distribution even way back
those
then,
small towns, that was a challenge.
Yeah.
And even think about it, even some of the restaurants in some of the small towns, even out in California, you had dry counties back then. I mean, it's hard to believe nowadays.
Yeah.
But that's a challenge.
Yeah, we're about to have marijuana go legal nationally, so federally. So yeah, we've come a long ways. So having a company sell sheet where it just kind of really breaks down like basically everything we've just talked about so far on the show, that you can hand people, show people in a nutshell what you're about, why your product's different, all these things to help them tell your story to whoever they need to pitch it to.
Right.
Absolutely. And then this final thing that he said that I thought was just really good was handling objections. And he told a story on the last episode about how he actually went out into the restaurants and things like that to get these. But he said, find out why people are saying no, and then figure out in your product and your branding, in your distribution, how do you turn those no's into yeses?
Yeah.
And he gave a great example with a graphic that he created, which I thought was just amazing. And it said, the big problem was people didn't understand craft beer. They didn't know what it tastes like, because this was back before craft beer was big.
Yeah.
So like they weren't sure. And the waitresses and waiters, they didn't know I guess they're called servers now. My apologies. We're gonna get an explicit rating for calling people waitresses. So he created this graphic that it showed all the different types of beer and kind of how where they were on color and taste and all these kind of things, including his competitors. He wasn't scared to put that on there because he wanted the whole industry to rise.
Right.
But the objection is, I don't know what this tastes like. So how do you help solve that objection? You create a graphic that people can show to people, and even had t-shirts made up for people. So, why
you educate them because a lot of these people didn't know. They had a vested interest because they didn't know enough about some of these up and coming, beers. So they would naturally, if I'm selling, or if I'm a waitress or a waiter, or I'm sorry, Sean, a server.
There you go.
Which to me is more demeaning than, I don't know. So I guess I'm just old fashioned.
What do you know?
But if I'm in their position, I'm going to sell them what they're familiar with, right? Because that means a higher tip for me, the more they're buying of this, whatever, whether it's Budweiser, Miller, Coors, the big brands. So I want them to go with what they're familiar with. And if I try to steer them in a different direction, they're like, so, what he was doing was great. It's educating, it's putting a packaging together that educates the people that are ultimately going to be selling your beer. And on helping them understand how to explain it and how to, educate their customers ultimately. So,
yeah. And you can do this online too. I mean, right. You can send out surveys. You can find out why people are saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And then figure out how do you turn the no's into yeses earlier in the process.
Right.
And I think that's a great takeaway because,
yeah.
And if you do some of the other stuff that we've talked about in this episode, you will get rid of a lot of the no's by being much clearer and, much more kind of in tune with your audience, in tune with what the competitors are doing, really in tune with what you offer as a product or a brand.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you do all of that, there's still going to be a lot of people that say no, and you're still going to make some mistakes. So if you go out into the marketplace and find out why people are saying no, and then figure out a strategy to turn those into yeses, that's how he got, 100% growth.
Sure.
10 years running.
Yeah.
It was, a combination of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought that was really good stuff. And he just I loved how he just kind of threw that out, like while we were in the green room after the last episode. He's like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wow, we should probably talk about that.
I know. And I love how I didn't record that. That was even cooler. No.
Hey, well, we had an excuse for an extra beer and
that's right.
An extra 40 minutes to talk.
And I would encourage people, we mentioned this on the last episode, but if you want to understand this, watch a series of Shark Tank. I don't care what season it is, but like go, if you have Amazon Prime or something like that, jump on that and watch like a season of Shark Tank, because the first 5 minutes of every pitch that every entrepreneur does to these sharks, covers this. Why are you different? What separates you from the competition? What's your plan? How do you plan to market? Everything is covered like in the first 5 to 10 minutes of this.
Yep.
And that determines whether these sharks are in or whether they're out. And they are brutally honest. It's really interesting to watch. So that's a good marketing lesson. Like from a guerrilla marketing standpoint, it's just watching that and seeing, like, I don't care what industry you're in or what business you're in, just seeing like people pick apart a product or a business, within that first 5 minutes, of their introduction is just fabulous. It's good learning.
Yeah, definitely. So, I don't know if you can hear in the background, but Diesel's trying to say hello.
Hello, Diesel.
Diesel the dog.
He smells those ginger.
The ginger snaps. He's all, no, he sees something out the window. I don't know what it is. So he's barking here in the background. But
I gotcha.
But that's all I had for the episode. So
yep,
I think we can call that.
Just to emphasize it, I'm going to hold it up one more time.
Oh, there we go.
My big takeaway.
Yeah. Treat your product with reverence and everything else with irreverence. Pete Schlossberg of Pete's Wicked Ale.
Good stuff.
Very good.
I'm going to have Pete on another podcast, and I'm going to I'm saving this for that podcast to bring up. So
I like
good stuff. But yeah, good stuff, Sean. It's all, as always, it's been a pleasure. For our audience, it's always good to get this content out there. We love having guests like Pete on. We're going to continue to do so. We got a couple of weeks left of the year, or I guess 3 weeks left of the year.
Yep.
And I'm excited, man. 21, it's going to be fun. Got some really cool things we're going to do in 21. Sean will be talking about it, but I'm looking forward to it. And closing out these last few weeks, we got some couple of other guests coming on here in the next couple of weeks as we close out the year, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, I've got a couple I'm working on right now to get us on, so we'll see if we can fit them in. Crazy time of year to schedule guests, but we'll definitely fit them in.
Yeah, and we might be adjusting our we might be doing some I think the week of Christmas we'll be doing, because we typically do these on Friday. We'll probably, like the week of Christmas, we may be doing these on a Wednesday or a Thursday or something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Probably a Wednesday, the week of Christmas. So but we'll continue on. We won't miss a beat.
That's correct. All right. I'll let you close this out.
Okay. Thanks as always for listening. You can find us at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your channels. Stitcher Radio, iHeart, Spotify, any of your platforms that you listen to those fine podcasts, you can find us. And you can also find our Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/persuasion by the pint. And Sean, it's been fun, and we'll see you all on the next episode.
See ya.